Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host Miyosha. And today we're reviewing Married at First Sight season 17, the last few episodes because we haven't been here because there wasn't
No.
much to show. Um, Before we get into that, please make sure you are subscribed to our channel and make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you're still watching Married at First Sight and meet us in the comments to share your thoughts.
Yes.
I am very exhausted with the show. I
We
feel like
tired. Not
usually
tired.
I don't watch
Tired.
the Where Are They Now episodes usually. Do you?
Mm-mm.
And so I
No, after decision day, well, yeah, after decision day, I jump to the reunion and that's it. Usually the last few seasons by then I'm worn down and I'm tired. I'm barely making it through.
yeah, so the fact that we're following divorced couples and it really is exhausting to me. So guys, if you're watching this review, we're probably not going to talk much or at all about the other couples. We're going to keep it mostly focused on after party stuff because a few things
Hmm.
have come out and have happened that we know y'all want to talk about. So we want to talk about it with y'all. And then we'll focus on Chloe and Michael.
Yeah, I think the other couples we've ran it into the ground. There's nothing else to say. The scenes are hard to get through, and I understand that they needed filler,
Yeah.
but they would have been better off just focusing on Chloe and Michael and then jumping ahead to the reunion with everybody else.
Yeah,
So,
like their last few weeks together, an episode fully dedicated to them.
hmm.
It's worn me down to the point where I don't know next season how you'll feel about reviewing the show again, but I'm like, I don't know. It's just so much of a commitment. Like you see Love is Blind, we get in, get
Hmm.
out, even though there's drama coming out about it, which honestly I'm about sick of that now
Yeah,
too. Um,
we're done with that.
like why are people still in somebody's comments trying to drag them when they've clearly moved on? Like, cut it out. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear about AD and Clay together. Love
Mm-mm.
AD, love her social media. She's in her content creator bag. Definitely support that, but I just don't see the need to keep making videos about a season that is over. Follow these people's platforms or don't at this
I
point.
I think, and I know we're way ahead from next season, but I think depending on how the weddings go in the first few weeks,
Mm.
because as they said, all these men decided early on it was a no-go on these women. So yeah, if we get the sense that none of these couples are going to make it or at least be more entertaining, we're done.
And when we say more entertaining, we don't mean this nonsense drama.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. A good balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so let's talk about the after party because a couple of weeks ago, I
Mhm.
believe it was, Cameron was on the after party along with Becca and I think Michael. I don't
Hmm.
know. But they were there, and Cameron dropped some news that Emily cheated on Brennan with an Australian guy at a bar. What are your thoughts? So she kissed him. She kissed,
Hmm.
or she and the Australian kissed because there's differing opinions on who kissed whom.
I'm confused because one, if y'all are out having a girls' night, how did this information get to Cameron?
Right.
If it's you, okay, it's Emily, Becca, and Claire.
Mhm.
How did it get back? I think it's safe to assume that it's Claire. Number two, how did it get back with so much detail?
Okay.
An
Don't
Australian guy. It's such a random detail.
why we need to know his nationality.
Like, I could understand if he was, I don't know. It's just, to me, that detail just did not matter. So, I don't know. It just has my wheels turning as to how did this information get back? Why so much detail? Did Emily want Claire to send that information through Cameron? Because then that would explain why Emily doesn't have much smoke for Claire.
Yeah, interesting.
I have questions.
I don't think Emily cared. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, so see, Brennan was protecting her. Brennan was protecting her. If you want to believe that Brennan is some type of protector, that's on you. That is not the vibe that I get. I don't see Brennan protecting anyone but him. But the way that I see it is, at this point, Brennan had already checked out probably a few times, and Emily was trying to prove something, which, to be very clear, she should not have done. Like,
Mm-mm.
if you sign up for a show about marriage and you're married to somebody, see the process through or quit early. Don't go to the bar and make out with somebody. Like, I don't think under any circumstance, whether Brennan had checked out or not, that that's something that she should have done. I don't think she's the reason Brennan checked out, or I don't think Brennan is, I don't think highly of him because
Mm-hmm.
how he handled himself in this process. But those two things can be true. Brennan could have not been the best husband, not have been committed to this process, which I think is safe to say. And at the same time, Emily reacted in a way that was extremely poor.
Also, I have questions on the timing.
Mm.
Did this happen early on in the first few weeks, or did this happen after I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks? Not excusing it, because I don't think that she should have done it. I think it came from a very strange place, her doing this. But I would want to know, when did this happen? Because pretty early on, he didn't want to move in,
Yeah,
and he basically said, let's just be friends through this process.
exactly.
So when did this happen? This whole narrative of, oh, he was protecting her, well, that doesn't add up.
I don't think he cared. Even when he found, like, say he finds out about it, I don't think he cared. And that's why we didn't hear about it. He was checked out
Mm-mm.
so much so that it doesn't even matter what this woman does. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think we heard it from Cameron and not Brennan, because I think Brennan was more like, okay, I'm focused on how I come off on camera.
And getting out of this.
I don't even care. Yeah, get me out of this.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh,
But
I'm
yeah, Emily, yeah, girl, this was a no-go. You shouldn't have done it. You were still married. And I think she was clearly trying to prove something to herself and him. Maybe her self-esteem was taking a hit, but this does not look good for you, regardless of the timing and what he was doing. I'm tired of both of them,
And
honestly.
I think it shows just immaturity, because you're over here trying to prove something to a person who
I
doesn't,
don't want you.
he doesn't care. You're not proving anything
Mm,
to him at all, because he cares so little. And so
mm.
whatever point you thought you were making, 0 points were made. Also, I want to talk about her on the after party last
Okay.
night. So, of course, this was the first time Emily was on the show since Cameron said that. And so
Mm-hmm.
Keisha Knight Pulliam, the great hostess she is, of course, she asked about it. And so Emily's like, well, if you want to call it cheating, the Australian guy kissed me and da 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 da. And, I was doing it to prove this point to Brennan. And Keisha Knight Pulliam's like, yeah, but you were still married, even if,
It's not connecting.
yeah. And she does not like Keisha Knight Pulliam. Like,
And she don't like her either.
right.
Whatever.
She's so professional, but you can tell she's not like her. And you know what's interesting? When Cameron said that news, I guess Emily was on her social media saying, "Oh, women
Mm-hmm.
should support women." And I personally, believe in supporting other women. I also believe that Keisha Knight Pulliam has a job to do, and her job is to ask those questions. And if you are doing things like going and making out with another guy, what type of support are you expecting from her? Are you expecting her to coddle you and say it's okay? Like, support sometimes looks like, okay, girl, you have to be held accountable for certain.
Accountability. Yeah.
She's not gonna be
Mm-mm.
like, oh, but she did it because, no, there's no justification for it.
And she knows if this was flipped around, she would be big mad and in her feelings. So,
Keisha Knight Pulliam didn't. If a man had done this and Keisha Knight Pulliam didn't press him, then I would be like, oh, she's anti-woman. But she's addressed every, like, big thing that has come up on the show.
mhm.
She's addressed it, and so I think Emily definitely has smoke towards the wrong person. I think she sees Keisha Knight Pulliam doing her job as some type of attack to her, but it's like, she's asking the questions we want to know, and that's what she gets paid to do. And if you would like to take that personally, girl,
He should say, y'all not about to be dragging me like y'all do Kevin Frazier.
right? Some people are saying in different comment sections like we wish she was the one hosting the reunion, and I kind of do too.
It
But
makes sense. Why would you bring in a whole separate person?
well, he was there before her, so I don't know, maybe they have a contract with him or something.
Yeah, but from the reunions I've seen, it doesn't seem like he's watched in as much detail.
Or he doesn't have his like. Remember Katina and Olajuwon season, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the couple that we all wanted to see." No, we did not want to see them.
Mm-mm.
We did not like them. We still do not.
Were you watching the same season as us?
Was not. He never is. He's never on the same page as the audience. But yeah, so I think Emily girl, Keisha Knight Pulliam is not the one who you should have all this smoke for. She's doing her job. She is not your friend. She has been polite and professional towards you, and that is really her only duty.
So I was going to ask you, and I may be mixing up the weeks, but I think it was last night.
Mhm.
Did you hear about this friend that Brennan was texting? That was Claire's friend?
Yeah, I think it was the after party last night.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he was texting a lot of other people, but I think he's talking about that more on the reunion.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was on the after party or if it was
Preview.
the preview, but
Okay.
I mean, I think Brennan was checked out. I would not be
Okay.
surprised if he was texting other people and interested in going on double dates and Cameron took up for him. Like I'm not surprised with any of this. And that's why when people are like, "See, Emily has been the villain the whole time." I'm like, "No."
Yeah, they both have had a big part in this.
Exactly. Like just because, more things are coming out about her, that does not mean he has been innocent. I
Mm-mm.
do think she showed up ready for a marriage or willing to give this more of a try than he did.
Mm-hmm.
Even like we saw that after the honeymoons. All right, the last thing on the after party is that Emily mentioned this and it came up on a previous episode too. I guess they're surprised that the guys aren't texting them. They're surprised that the guys aren't reaching out to them. And then on the after party, she felt like Brennan, didn't even show up to this group outing that they had, and Cameron didn't show up, and the least he could have done was show up for Claire. To which Keisha Knight Pulliam responded, "Didn't he have a surgery?" And Emily goes, "Yeah, but he was in recovery. He could have at least come there and stood with like a glass of water." It's like, girl, he has surgery, and she brings up the fact that, well, I got my head sliced open and I still showed up. I have thoughts on people like that, but I'll let you address it first.
Girl, that's on. Well, one, why do y'all want to see any of these men?
Why?
Why? You know there's tension there. You didn't end on the best of terms, so why? Um, Also, just because you want to push through filming and show up with your head gashed open and all of America can see your insides, girl, not everybody is here for that. No, that's on you. Mm-mm.
And we don't
And
expect. Go ahead.
based off of the way that him and Claire ended, what sense would it make?
Yes.
None.
I and if I were her, I would not have shown up for filming. Like, what were you really trying to prove? Go home and rest. You maybe had fear of missing out, and so you showed up, and that's great for you. I don't even want to say it's commendable, but I think she's in her. You know how she said her dad pushed her really hard with soccer,
Mm-hmm.
where she has to show up even though she's showing her insides to the world. That's not the expectation for everybody. And I think she could benefit from maturity. She could mature quite a bit because one, you need to be held accountable for your actions, especially when they're wrong. And I don't know if her girls are doing that because I know they have their own situations, but somebody needs to hold her accountable. And she also has to understand like people aren't about to break their bodies down for filming and
Mm-mm.
for an ex who was barely an ex. Like that is insane to me. Let it go.
Also, you remember how Brennan was saying, like, oh, she's negative, she's negative.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know that I say she's so negative. I will say that she does like to look for a fight. Emily likes that combativeness, I think. That's why she's like, oh, well, why didn't they come? I don't think it was just about them showing face. I think she wanted to confront them again about how they've behaved this whole season. And I think for Brennan, that's a no-go. Like, why would you want to show up and be confrontational on camera? I think that's where he was getting with this whole, oh, she's so negative, so negative. I do think a part of Emily is looking for a fight in certain situations where she feels like she's been wronged or her friends have been wrong. So it was like, oh, one more chance to let y'all have it and I can rag at you. So yeah, I'll give him that. I can see it.
And there's not even, I understand being the friend who wants to take up for everybody, but also you have to know when to pick your battles. And I think that's the thing she could benefit from is like, hey,
Mm.
you're fighting a battle with people who don't care and who have not cared since the honeymoon, as far as Cameron, probably even before then. So, and when it comes to Cameron, because I've seen the previews for the reunion,
Mhm.
know what I think with Cameron? I think he's a very petty person. And I think that day when they were on the rooftop
Mhm.
and he realized that Claire was grouping herself in with the rest of the
Mhm.
people and like, yeah, we feel like the men have been silenced, which I think you and I talked about and we were like, why do people want to group themselves in with everybody? Like your situations are completely what Becca went through is not what Emily went through. What
Mm-mm.
Emily went through is not what you went through, Claire. So I think when she took it upon herself to group herself with the rest of the women, it put a battery in his back. And
Oh
that's why
yeah.
he was on the after party cutting up. And that's why he's about to probably give her the business at this reunion. And I think he would not, I I wouldn't be surprised if he makes up some stories because he knows how to get under her skin. And I think that is his goal.
Yeah, I don't see it for either of them either. Cameron, I'm sorry, I still don't trust him very much. And
No.
I don't trust him any more than I trust her at
Right.
this point. Like we had a lot of questions about him early on in this process. Cameron, I ain't forgot about that. Some of the weird stuff you did early on with your dad being sick and not being like all that.
One of them
Both of
likes to run
y'all.
her mouth a little too much. She loves some gossip. And then the other one will just stop at nothing to be hurtful towards someone who he felt like was hurtful towards him, I think.
Yeah.
I can see the petty in him. So yeah, when I see people in the comments like this was the worst female cast ever, I'm like,
And
maybe,
y'all think
maybe this was the worst female cast ever. But I honestly think there were two people who maybe the spotlight is on. That's Emily and Claire. Becca, the only thing that we really have on her is that she was very aggressive about wanting to sleep with
Mhm.
Austin, which of course in the beginning, hopefully we could all understand because they're married.
Mhm.
Was giving
And I
her
think
reassurance.
he proved her right. So,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And so Becca wasn't
mm,
problematic. I don't think Lauren's very problematic. I think she whatever contract they had her under where she had to keep showing up should not have been in place. But that's it on that. Anything else with after parties or previous episodes?
not one thing I did want to talk about before we jump to Michael and Chloe and we wrap this thing up
Okay.
is how did you feel about the boudoir photo shoot?
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that or not.
Hmm.
I think we didn't have to see it. I think their pictures turned out fine. And that's really it. Like I love the idea of celebrating their bodies because
Hmm.
that's just not something that you see, especially on television, right? So I love the concept of it. I think we should just let these women have their friendship off camera. We didn't need to be invited to that.
So I'll say I agree. I like the concept, the idea. I'm all here for it. Did I care to see it? No.
Yeah.
I
And
don't think.
they showing
Huh?
booty with a thong.
I'm sorry, all of America did not need to see that. And then the other part is these women were rejected, I think, pretty early on. And so they've kind of grouped themselves together and it's like, oh, well, the women versus the men, we're going to stick together throughout all this, even though they all have very unique situations as to why their relationships didn't work out. But I can acknowledge the men were laser focused on, okay, how do we get out of this without spoiling our image too much? I get what's fueling them. It just felt like one more, like, oh, well, in y'all's face, we're still going to celebrate ourselves. And it's like, these men don't care. They
Right.
don't want y'all. So why expose yourself so
Yeah.
much and be so vulnerable? And this is after decision day. It's not making sense for me. I'm not against the photo shoots. I think they looked beautiful, but I think y'all have given enough of yourselves, the tears, the
Yeah.
being rejected. Just we've seen enough. We don't need to see no more or get no more of you.
Yeah.
And definitely not as a way of like, oh, this is what they missed. Like, Becca, you look beautiful regardless. Like, you don't have to show him what he's missed. Like,
Yeah.
I just,
I 100% agree with that. But yeah, I mean, they look nice.
yeah,
And that is that.
that is.
Apparently the pictures were done by Becca, with the exception of hers, of course. I think so.
Oh, yeah. And they looked great.
Great.
I think, Becca clearly knows what she's doing. Like, they all looked beautiful. It's just, I mean, all of America don't deserve all of you.
And that's the thing, like Lifetime's gonna exploit your pain anyway. But it feels like you're giving them material now. But maybe for them it was empowering, so I don't want to talk
Maybe
down.
it was liberating. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we would see it, but that doesn't mean that's how they see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
they're the ones in the
good for
process.
them.
So, yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Okay.
So Michael and Chloe, we got like 2, 3 episodes, but there wasn't much that happened with them.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and go.
The animal, when they went to the animal farm.
Okay.
I honestly wasn't interested in this scene, but then they started talking about, or Chloe started talking about how she wants to foster kids 5 at a time, and how she wants to have an animal sanctuary with however many, animals. And did a part of you feel like she was saying this stuff to see if it would turn him off? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, okay, what have you done? Because she's 38 or 39 when this is being filmed. Okay, you're well into adulthood, your career. What have you done to foster some of these dreams on your own up until this point?
Mhm.
If I were Michael, I would have asked her that just to see how serious she is, because if these are such passion
Yeah.
projects for you, okay, have you as an independent person fostered, at least done the paperwork to be a foster parent yet? Okay, you have all of these animals at home, but how frequent are you at the animal shelters in terms of helping? Like, what are you doing to actually bring this to life on a
Yeah.
small scale? If I see that, then I may take you more seriously of like, oh, this could actually grow. But yeah, it just felt like she was kind of doing the most, especially when she was like, oh, and I want to do only teenagers, with behavioral issues. I'm sorry. Who says that?
So, mm, never mind.
I mean, um, I, if I were doing her intake interview or whatever in terms of like placing a child with her and she said that,
I'd be concerned.
that would be odd to me.
Yeah. Yes. So it was obviously a concern for him, but he didn't feel like it was appropriate for him to say anything. And for me, that's when I started to question. I've always questioned their relationship because it's just always felt
Fake.
somewhat inauthentic. Yeah, to some extent, it's always felt inauthentic. But when he was saying, well, I don't feel like I have a right to say anything, I wondered how invested he was in a future with her.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah, he
go ahead.
go ahead. And I was gonna say he just kind of took it in,
Hmm.
but didn't really want to say much. But I will say though, when you're on TV, you just never know how America is going to take your stance on something. So even with the whole fostering children,
Yeah.
because he said he would be open to having kids or not having kids. I think having even 5 of your own kids is different than fostering one child. So say he was to say, be honest and say, actually, I wouldn't either. I want to have my own kids. I
Hmm.
don't want, or just, I don't want to foster kids. Even him just making a simple statement like that could backfire in terms of like public opinion. I think,
Yeah. You think
I,
people
yeah,
even care about Married at First like that anymore? Married at
I
First Sight?
think the people who are watching Married at First Sight, um, I think people could give him the business for pushing back on wanting to, like, well, why don't you want to foster? There's so many kids out there. I could see that. Yeah.
Maybe. Say I put down Chloe. Chloe is interested in living out her dreams and having someone else there while she does it, as opposed to creating dreams with someone new, which I understand because she's 39. So she's had her whole life so far to dream. And, it's not easy to put down a dream because now someone else is in your life. Like bringing two lives together is effort, it takes effort.
I don't buy those are the dreams that
Yeah.
she actually has. I'm not buying what you're selling, Chloe. Have you have you done any baby steps to have these dreams at almost 40 as a single woman?
Mhm. So he did at some point address the concerns he had. So he said, fostering kids is fine, but is fostering 5 kids what I want? Having an animal shelter is fine, but do I want, I forget her
Mhm.
number. It was hundreds or something. Do I,
Yes, an animal sanctuary. And
yeah.
who's tending to this while you're working? Like,
Well,
it's
she,
not adding
I don't know.
up.
Like, maybe she talked to him about it and we just didn't see it, but yeah. And then this was the episode where Michael talked about, I guess they were trying to figure out the living situation. And he
Mhm.
also didn't seem super committed to that. So
Mm-mm.
for
He's
me,
like, oh, in 6 or 8 months.
yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, we could do 4 to 5 days together. Isn't that what Steve and Noy tried to do?
Yeah, and Dr. Pepper still don't live with her husband to our knowledge. So
It's her second husband, so
yeah.
the rules be
But
different.
yeah, Chloe was just like, no, either we're moving in immediately or we're not going to move forward, which makes sense.
Hmm.
He was already showing her, hey, yeah, girl, no.
Yeah, even when she asked him, "Do you feel like we're on the trajectory to being in love?" And his Michael would frustrate me because I would be like, "So yes or no?" Like,
He
you
not
ask
gonna
me
give
the
it to you.
person, and they would say everything but yes or no. Like they would say, "Oh well, this is something that I'm not as comfortable with, but this is something I'm more comfortable with." I'm sorry, there are two words: yes and no. Which one is it? Don't give me the paragraph, okay? Oh, so yeah, he's definitely a paragraph type of person.
Trying
Uh,
to confuse you.
exactly. And I get it. Like I adore the people who would will use 100 words instead of 10 to protect your feelings. But at a certain point, it's like if I'm looking for a direct answer, I need you would protect my feelings by giving me a direct answer so that I have clarity,
Hmm.
rather than giving me all these words and I still don't know where we stand.
And I think also from the beginning, we've all also questioned the match.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
Michael was in so many words saying that, but not saying it. Is there more here? Is there a good enough foundation? Do I feel compelled to want to stay married to her? They're just very different. Nothing about Michael and his Gucci loafers and whatever he got going on is giving me animal sanctuary. And not to say that fashion forward people
No,
can't,
he got
be
three
into
pets
animals.
or two pets.
Yeah, but that's in his home, in his condo, not on a farm. I don't know, just nothing. even him being as eclectic and him wearing her jewelry, she seemed to be really put off by that. And then she, you didn't hear too much about it later. So we've been questioning, is this the right match? And I just don't think he was that into her.
Mm. Do you think
Mm-mm.
she was into him?
She wasn't either. They weren't into each other. And I think once she started talking about this whole adopting the kids, the animal sanctuary, I
Yeah.
think that added to what was already there for him. She sensed it because I don't know if we want to jump to this episode,
I mean,
but
might as well.
she said when she sat down with her friend, that
Cesar.
she says that she already knew that he was probably going to say no.
Mm.
So
At least he ain't shocker. Never mind.
yeah,
I was
she was
gonna
already,
say an AD, but I just said we don't want to do that.
but she kind of did what AD did by saying yes, even though she said, "Oh yeah, he'll probably say no." So
Yeah. So the only other thing I have from previous episodes was that Dr. Pia said their answer seemed curated, and
she
they
seemed to be offended by it.
right, us curate, girl. You're the most curated person this show has ever seen. Let's be very for real. Um,
Mm,
but I also think with them, and it could be because they've lived their separate lives, they never wanted to step on each other's toes.
mm-hmm.
Maybe because they weren't super interested in each other. Because if you are trying to work towards a life together, at
Mm-hmm.
some point you are going to something is going to bother you enough that you have to sit this person down and say, hey, I know this is what you see, this might not work out for me. But neither one of them wanted to be like, hey, this wouldn't work out for me, we need to find a compromise.
Because you'd have to care enough.
You'd have to care enough and you'd have to want it.
That, yeah, to want to make it work. But him saying, "Oh yeah, basically, I don't want to move in." This whole lifestyle difference of the things that we want out of our futures. Yeah, I just don't think he was into her.
Okay. I think later on I don't want to say she started to get into him, but I think maybe she enjoyed having someone around and it was him.
You're optimistic. I think she saw a way out of it without
That's true.
looking bad. I think she knew what she was doing with the information she planted about the adopting the kids and the animal sanctuary. And she kept saying, "Oh, I know I'm a lot. I know I'm a lot."
Even her saying yes, I do think that was strategic.
Why would you say yes and you just told Caesar that he was probably going to say no?
Mm.
Why? But she already knew how he was leaning, and since they asked her to go first, she took the opportunity to say yes.
Yeah.
Because even when he was telling her no, she was smiling the whole time.
She had already prepared herself.
She's just like, "Mm, mm, okay."
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Did you understand what Michael was trying to say about I guess he has a certain expectation of what marriage should be and how divorce
Oh,
to marriage, and he just did not see himself doing that for her right now. Did you
so I think that he was trying to weasel himself out by saying, "Oh, I'm not ready for marriage," because even Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper are just so confused in their scene. They're like, "Okay, but you agreed to come back here the second time. How are you saying you don't know that marriage is for you or that you're not ready for marriage?" But I think he tried to say it in the nicest way of, "Girl, I don't want to be married to you."
also to answer the question of why would you come back a second time if you weren't ready for marriage, whatever? Michael is a showman, and he I think was gonna have his 15 minutes of fame.
Mm,
A little bit of me
okay.
feels that way. Just he got to come on here. He's the best guy this season. So he doesn't really have a bad reputation that he's leaving with. A few people know him. His fashion sense, he stands out
Mhm.
because of that. And maybe he'll pick up a little bit more attention. But I think if they would have paired him with the right person, maybe he would have taken the opportunity to be married. But it seems like after being married to Chloe, his single life is more attractive to him than the life with her.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it's more her than the marriage itself.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's more her. The fact that he wouldn't introduce her to his mom, that too. Now, I understood his reservations because he's like, hey, I don't want to drudge her through this a second time. But okay, once you get to 7, 8 weeks
Yeah.
in the process with her,
Hmm.
you're not introducing her because you already know you're not going to say
Yes.
yes.
And I think he realizes the effort that it takes to maybe be married and stay married, even if it's your best friend. So, like a lot of us, we marry people who we have picked out, we enjoy being around. Like those are our people. And even then, it
Hmm.
takes effort. Like I might not feel like
Hmm.
doing X today, but because I want this person's life to be great and I want to pour into the marriage, I'll do it. I think he realized the effort that it takes. And he also realized that he wasn't trying to make that effort for a stranger who he didn't get to pick for himself.
And I did see a few people online being like, "Oh, Michael, you drudged us through this again. Why even show back up?" I think his excuse or reason
Mhm.
of, "Oh, I don't know that I want to be married or that I'm ready to be married." I think that was his easy way out. We know that that's not it. But I also think too, he didn't pick her. Not
Mhm.
only did he not pick her, even if he was attracted to her and all the things, I don't know, the of what Chloe presented, I wasn't surprised that they just weren't gonna be the right match. Some of this goes back to the experts. When y'all were interviewing this woman, was she talking about this animal sanctuary stuff and these adopting the kids and all of that? Come on. Uh, so I get some people feeling like, oh, Chloe and Michael, you wasted our time, but he didn't pick her. So there was always this possibility of it just not being the right match.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's it. I liked the color of her dress. I think it's always a good idea to go solid color. I know
The
it's hard
fact
to talk
that this
about.
man,
I
the
know
fact that
it.
this he showed up in shorts.
He said it was cold, but I had committed to it already. Okay.
The shorts alone should have let us know the casualness of it all.
Yeah.
No, baby. It's a no.
Anyway, y'all. So that is it. We'll be
Oh.
back for the reunion. Apparently, it's a 2 episode reunion.
And I don't think it's next week, right? I think it's
Oh,
the yeah.
no.
So we probably won't be back for
Until
whatever.
next April. But we're gonna take our time and we'll be back to
Mhm.
making Am I the A-hole videos,
Mhm.
closer to the summer time. But yeah, we just have a lot going on right now. Good things,
Yeah.
but a lot happening. And we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.